Happy Wednesday. Welcome into PTN Extra. Evan Kamiko, as always, alongside Mike Irwin. Mike, we've talked a lot of basketball on PTN Extra the last couple of months. It's all led to this Arkansas in the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. They took down Kansas in the first round, St. John's in the second round, and here they are, a matchup with 3-seed Texas Tech. What do you like about these two teams as they meet on the court tomorrow night?
Well, I don't want to say they're similar, but kind of unknowns. Texas Tech has really snuck up on everybody this season. I got a lot of friends out in the Lubbock area. When basketball started, they thought, we're not going to be any good. They lost right off the bat to A&M. They had another early season loss. Who'd they lose to? St. Joseph's. And they thought, this is terrible. But along the way, they just got better and better. And then when they beat Houston at Houston, that's a big deal. And so they're looking pretty good right now. You really can't compare in terms of the seeding of the two teams, but I just think both teams were kind of an afterthought until now. And you have to ask yourself, now Arkansas is not playing a team that, everybody's just going. Now, look, I saw ESPN's computer ranking. Gave Arkansas like a 28% chance of winning or something.
Yeah.
So Arkansas is still the underdog, so Cal likes that. But I think the attitude is less of, you don't have a chance to win this game. I know Razorback fans are a lot more confident about this game, and that may be bad. You don't want to play somebody that you think, we can beat these guys, because they are good. And just because they're Texas Tech and the name doesn't stand out to you, if you start looking at them statistically, they're pretty good.
Yeah, and let's dive into the statistics momentarily, but I love that you brought up where it seems like everyone in the national media has Arkansas in their power rankings of the Sweet 16. It is 16. There's no lower team than Arkansas, which is kind of funny because it feeds into this whole idea that Cal keeps coming back to of, well, I like being the underdogs. I was the underdogs back at UMass in 1996. You know who was an underdog that year? Not Cal. They lost one game. They went to the Final Four. Maybe he had an underdog mentality of that team where it was like, well, we're UMass, we're the small school, yada, yada, yada. But the reality is, that team wasn't an underdog. That team lost one game that year. They were really good. So I'm curious now as we look at this Arkansas team, they are the true underdog, right? If everyone out there is saying they're the 10 seed, lowest seed remaining, 16 out of 16 on the power rankings, for this Hog team, what's really impressed you the last couple of weeks as they've gotten to this moment where they are right now?
I mean, there's so many things. You can start with Boogie Flan, who I thought there's no way he can sit out for 2 months and then come back and contribute, and he has. And I really like the plan they had, where he didn't try to take over. It was just whatever I can do to help. I thought he got better from the first game to the second. So if he keeps that up, he may have a big game here. He's getting more comfortable. So that helps. Gives you an extra point guard or an extra guard. He's been playing mostly off guard. But he's gotten some really good assists. I think he's really good at getting inside and finding one of the bigs inside. But he scored some too, and he's hit a three, I think, in both games. So that's helped. But in the first game against Kansas, it was Jonas Adu. He had his best game of the year, over 20 points, and bringing down rebounds, playing defense. He went up against their big guy and just totally dominated the guy, really dominated him and held him, down in points.
Hunter Dickinson.
So that was impressive. Then you come back to the next game, and because he got in foul trouble, I thought they were dead. I really did, because the foul trouble took him out of the first half, took him out for the first part of the second half. And what happened, other people stepped up. People like Billy Richmond stepped up and ended up being the leading scorer in that game. Nobody would have predicted that. So it's just that this team, I think, when we go back to what was said about this team when they were starting to lose games, a lot of people were saying, okay, they got all this NIL money, that doesn't help, because the players don't care that much. They just got their money. But what you had with that NIL money, and some people said that they didn't get their money's worth. No, they got good players. Some of them were young, and a couple of them were hurt that had to come around. But I think what you're seeing now is there's a lot of talent on this team, and I think it's still getting overlooked. But I think this is not just some team that got hot or something like that. The talent was there all along. They just had some young players like Billy Richmond, like Carter Knox, that have to come along, and the further you get into the season, they're kind of not freshmen anymore, and their five-star status is starting to show up. And then, look what they do. Their two leading scorers were out for a long time. Then one was out in the tournament. Don't know if he's going to play in this game. but they've been able to overcome that because other people have stepped up.
Yeah, Coach Cal said Adu Thero, he did not practice earlier today out in San Francisco, so a quick update on that. Cal doesn't expect him to play that 12 to 15 minutes that was originally reported on, more like maybe 8 to 10, but who knows? They said the same thing about Boogie last week. So Adu Thero did not practice today. We'll give you the guys that update right now, but I think what's really interesting about this team is you look at the top 3 teams when it comes to NIL money. Arkansas is right up there with Arkansas, Kansas State, and Indiana. Indiana didn't make the tournament. K-State probably didn't make the tournament as well. I don't have their finalized stats off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure they didn't get in. And here you have little old Arkansas, who is now suddenly finds himself in the Sweet 16, clicking at the right time. But we'll look at their opponent. That's what we're here to talk about. Texas Tech, 8 losses in the regular season. They got to the Big 12 semifinals before losing to a really hot Arizona team. What stands out about this team? Because they've got a really great guard in Elijah Hawkins, but it's JT Toppin that they try to get the ball to and get going.
Well, I think anytime you look at stats, to me, the stat that really matters is scoring and defense. So they're averaging 80.8 points a game. That stands out above Arkansas 76.6, but they're only giving 67.5 to Arkansas 71. So just in terms of the scoreboard, they got an advantage. They're a little bit better shooting team, both from the floor and for 3 points. Arkansas has a rebound or a free throw advantage, 15.3 made free throws per game to 13.9. Texas Tech has a slight rebounding advantage. Arkansas has an advantage in steals and blocks, a big advantage in block shots, 5.7 per game to 2.6 for Texas Tech. But Texas Tech is averaging 16.5 assists per game. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's important because that speaks to scoring. Arkansas is not bad at 14-3. So, again, you look at their season and, some of these weird losses against St. Joseph and the A&M game is a common opponent. They lost to A&M in a neutral site game by 5. Arkansas lost to A&M at 8, but it was at College Station, so that's kind of a wash. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of these, Iowa State's a good team. They lost to them, lost to Arizona, lost to TCU, and lost to Arizona again. Lost to Houston in Lubbock, but beat them in Houston. So the only other thing I would talk about is if you talk about resume in this tournament, Tech beat a 14 seed and an 11 seed. Arkansas beat, a 9 seed and a 2 seed. Mm-hmm. So I think they played tougher competition, and that may help them in this game.
Yeah, and that's where Arkansas, you have that advantage where they've had the harder road, right? It's 7 seed Kansas and it's 2 seed St. John's. One team won the Big East and was supposed to be this Final Four team under Rick Pitino. Cal ended up beating him, but before that, had to go and beat Bill Self when, to your point, Jonas Adu was in foul trouble for a lot of the game, and he really did a great job. Adu was in foul trouble against St. John's, but Adu did a great job of limiting it, and this is all without really anything from Zvonimir Visic, who just really hasn't looked the part the last 3 weeks after being really hot to end SEC play, goes to the tournament, struggles in Nashville. But as we kind of move on and you look at this Texas Tech team in this matchup, I think what's really interesting, and we talked with David Collier, the Raider Nation sports director. That's also another digital extra we've done this week. Go check that out really quickly if you got time after this. But to our conversation is, what David said to me is this game is going to come down to rebounds, like you've kind of already mentioned, like most of these Arkansas games do, because it's going to be a tight game at the end because Arkansas has that battle-tested experience, unlike a team like Texas Tech who walked through UNC Wilmington and then, got a little tested towards the end of the game against Drake, but still ultimately found a way. So can Arkansas... I expect Arkansas to have a 10-point lead at some point in the second half. I think if you look at the script of every game, that's how it happens. Can they hold on? Can they win by 15, 16 rather than win by 2 points? And I think it's going to come down to physicality because Texas Tech is going to want to run things through JT Toppin. But what the Red Raiders are so good at doing, to your point of assists, kicking the ball out, finding the open threes. They shot 47 threes against UNC Wilmington. That's an NCAA record for attempts, and still won that game. So that's the formula for Texas Tech. They're not going to make mistakes either, where Arkansas, we know, with guys like Carter Knox and Billy Richmond, are a little more prone to making some of these rookie mistakes that you see freshmen make.
Yeah, mistakes could decide it. Arkansas needs to shore up on the defensive boards and not give up this crazy number of offensive rebounds that St. John's had. Because I don't think Texas Tech will shoot like 20-something% with that. They'll put they'll get those offensive rebounds and put them back up. So those are a couple of things that have to happen. But again, Arkansas has this. For whatever reason, Cal has convinced these guys they're not going to lose. Mm-hmm. They don't believe they're going to lose. So if they keep that, they'll win.
How much is that mentality? How much do you think that's worth this time of year?
I think it's important if you've got the talent. You can just tell somebody that, and if you don't have a good team, they're still going to lose.
Yeah.
You can think all you want, but if you're outmatched talent-wise. But I think this team is now starting to play up to its talent level, and a lot of, Carter Knox, not a freshman really anymore. Billy Richmond, not a freshman anymore. The only missing piece of the puzzle is Theroux. I don't expect him to do much if he does anything at all. If he was totally healthy, I think could really push this game toward Arkansas.
Yeah, absolutely, because Darian Williams is one of the Texas Tech guys, really versatile wings, going to back someone down, plays the 3-4. That's where the Theroux matchup you want to bring in, because you're going to assume it's going to be Adu and Toppin down low the entire game, maybe TB as well. But Williams has that physicality that you need to match that TB and Zvonimir Ivisic just don't have right now. And that's nothing against them. TB's been playing fantastic, but when it comes to physicality, TB just isn't what Williams is. Williams had 28 points against Drake, so he's one of those key factors. I think where Arkansas might have an edge is going to be guard play, and especially their size down low. Elijah Hawkins is only 5'11", so he's not that tall where you have DJ Wagner and Boogie Flynn, who are all 6'1", 6'2 plus. So I think that could be a really big discrepancy between the two teams where Arkansas can use their guards and be more physical than Texas Tech.
Oh, absolutely. Out front, but then you've got to do the defensive thing and can't let them give up. You can't give up all those threes to them because they do shoot a lot of threes, and they shoot reasonably well from three-point range, 37%, not bad. So you could lose the game that way. If you get so concerned with not giving up points on the inside, then kicking it back outside and somebody's wide open, we've seen that really hurt before.
So, Mike, if Arkansas wants to win this game, blank has to happen. Fill in the blank.
I think those inside guys have to be dominant. And then, again, you can't give up a lot of threes.
Yeah.
If you can do those things, if you can really play good defensive basketball and can score in the paint, which Arkansas has a size advantage. Again, the size issue has been a problem for Texas Tech. So if you can use your size advantage inside and get, let's say, Adu doesn't have to score 20 points. Let's say he scores 15 and Brazil scores 12. And I think it's really important for Ivisic to start doing something. I don't know if his hand is still bothering him. He had a back issue at one point. Cal made some statement, I think, earlier this week that he's looking a lot better. So maybe if all three of those guys are scoring points, Arkansas will be hard to beat.
Absolutely. Before we move on and show you guys kind of the update on what this graphic looks like that we're about to show you on the games and stuff, Nolan Richardson was at practice the other day getting ready. What'd you make of that clip from Hogs Plus?
I just thought it was huge. I mean, Cal is so smart about this stuff. He called him up before they came back home, called him up on his cell phone and invited him over. And then what Nolan did was he came in and gave a Nolan speech. And he talked about, you guys got to have some swagger.
Yeah.
Get your swagger in there. Because Nolan wasn't one of these coaches that taught his guys to be humble. Oh, be humble. Don't brag. Rest in peace. They just lost probably one of my favorite players of all time. And Big O, he was all about boasting and bragging because he had to back it up. And that was what Nolan was kind of saying to these guys, have some swagger about you. And then he basically, in so many words, told them, you're part of a great tradition here now. We have a tradition going all the way back, and it really goes before Eddie Sutton, because they went to the Final Four in the 1940s when it first existed. So you have a tie there to previous generations, and now you're the new generation. You got a new generation coach here, even though he's toward the end of his career. And I just thought it was awesome. You could see those players just standing there looking at Nolan. I'm sure if they didn't know who he was, Cal told them who he was.
Yeah.
And I got goosebumps watching him do that. To bring him back, because he sits out there on his farm, and I know that he had to take care of Rose so many years and he couldn't go anywhere. But Nolan, he's our version of John Wooden, and he needs to be honored, and he needs to be right there in the middle of the program. And I give Cal a lot of credit because he's done that way more than Musselman ever did.
Yeah, and I love when he said, I don't have to do this. I'm not doing this. It's you guys doing it, pointing at them. I love DJ Wagner just so locked in. His face in that moment was listening and trying to soak up as much details as possible. So Arkansas now, it's their fourth Sweet 16 in the last 5 seasons, which I think if you ask any Hog fan at the beginning of the year, if you take the Sweet 16, they would say yes. So let's take a look at all the information you need to know about this game between Arkansas and Texas Tech. It tips off Thursday at 9:09 p.m. in the Chase Center from San Francisco. Should be an awesome game. I think everybody's going to have their popcorn ready. It'll be a late night, so make sure as well that everyone at home's got the coffee. I'm sure Mike and I will definitely be drinking some coffee watching this game. Hopefully a good one. I'll probably end up drinking Diet Coke. But let's move on. Let's go to baseball. Baseball, number 2 team in the country right now. I want to end with this. It's a short conversation about baseball, but last night against Missouri State, it's kind of a game that we've seen a lot this year from Arkansas, but the difference is 9 times out of 10 this season, they've had the ability to close this game. They were up 13-8 in the top of the 9th inning, ended up losing 14-13 in 10 innings. What is your biggest concern right now with this team?
Pitching. I mean, the 3 starters have been inconsistent. The bullpen is starting to get a little bit inconsistent. Now, this is a midweek game, so DVH is using pitchers like Gibbler, who, by the way, was having he'd gone 2 innings into his 3rd inning, and he'd had 7 straight strikeouts. Okay, he's up to 39 pitches, which is a lot for a new guy who, hasn't pitched that much. So he gets that 7th straight K, and they're all bragging about him. Then he gives up back-to-back singles. He's up to 44 pitches. Guess what? Van Horn comes in and takes him out. Perfect. Then he brings in McIntyre. A lot of people, why did he bring in McIntyre? He had a 2.57 ERA, 1-0 in the season. You think he can get it done. He gets the first batter on a 1-2 count and then gives up a single. And that, because you had a guy on second, made it 13-9. Okay, then he gives up a double. That's now 13-10. Then came the error by Nolan Sousa at second base, and that did hurt. But he gives up another hit. And to me, that makes it 13-11. That's when he should have come out. He didn't come out. He walks the next batter with the bases loaded. Now it's 13-12. That's when Tate McGuire finally came in. He did his job, but they got an out at third, which is a fielder's choice, which allows a run to score. So now it's 13-13. And then Arkansas can't score in the bottom of the 9th. They get up, and Tate McGuire gives up a home run to the first batter. So now they're up, and Arkansas goes up and 3 down in the bottom of the inning. And to make matters worse, the pitcher was the first baseman. And baseball is like that sometimes. So now, and this is the important part, because it really bothers me when people say, hey, it doesn't matter, it's a midweek game, blah, blah, blah. It does matter when you're going off to Vanderbilt on the heels of a loss like this, which I got to believe Arkansas's hitters are frustrated. You have a 5-run lead, you've scored 13 runs, and your pitching gives up all those runs. And maybe they're thinking, hey, if the coaches had gone out there a little bit quicker, we wouldn't have lost this game. So now they got to go to Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt's coming off of a 10-0 win. So, I mean, it gets a little dicey, but Arkansas's hit 49 home runs to Vanderbilt's 19. They got an advantage there. Got an advantage in team batting average. Arkansas's 6th in the nation, I think, now. No, that's the ERA.
Yeah.
6th in the SEC at 3.43 to Vanderbilt's 3.2, so there's a better pitching advantage there. But Arkansas has more singles and doubles and home runs than Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is weird. They've got 7 triples. Well, Arkansas's got just 3, so that may help them. But here's another stat. Arkansas has stolen 18 bases. Guess what that is? Last in the SEC. Vanderbilt stole 40. That's 3rd. So if you get guys on base, that could be a problem.
Get them on, get them over, get them in. That's always the saying in baseball. To wrap up right now, talking about this weekend series against Vanderbilt, they're 14th in the country right now. What starter to you? Better yet, let's not even have that question. Gabe Gackle, what do you need to see out of him?
Well, he just has to be more consistent. They've had to take him out early. He's undefeated, but it's because they brought in good relief pitchers and saved him and had scored a lot of runs. So stop giving up base hits. He's given up fewer home runs than the other 2. The other 2 have given up a lot of home runs. Dave Van Horn said he's not making any changes. He said that today. They're not making any changes in their weekend rotation. So what all of those guys do is they need to locate better, because they're getting behind in the count, then they're bringing the ball over the plate, and it's getting smacked. And a lot of times they're giving up home runs. So the pitching is important. I think Arkansas's got a decided advantage at the plate. But they can't get into some of these games where you got a 4 and 5 run lead and then suddenly you don't, because the bullpen is starting to come apart a little bit too.
Yeah, a lot earlier than we saw it last season. Could be good, could be bad. As of right now, it's not looking great, but they are the number 2 team in the country, and the number 2 team in the country, as they probably should do, will bounce back. Only time will tell if they actually do, but that is going to do it for PTN Extra this week. For Mike Irwin, I'm Evan Camigo. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you right back here next Wednesday on PTN Extra.